everyone and welcome to another Clever Patch Crafternoons. Unfortunately, school holidays will be ending soon, so I thought for this week's Crafternoons we could dive into some lino cutting and create our very own personalised pencil case to get your new school year started. So what I will do with you today is take you through the art of lino cutting. I'm going to show you how to draw your design and transfer it onto your lino. Then I'll show you the different tools involved with lino cutting and how to carve your designs out. And then I'll take you through the printing side of things. So inking up your lino and then printing onto your pencil case. What we're going to need for this craft is a cotton pencil case. We will need some block printing ink, so we'll be using these EC block printing ink colours. You'll need some lino, a roller, a pencil, scissors, some scrap paper, a spoon will be handy, and you will need some lino cutting tools. So today we are going to use these pack of 6 lino cut knives. These are really good for beginners and they have everything you need in here. Okay, I think that's it. Let's jump into it. Alright, so let's start with our lino tile. So our lino tiles are a double-sided tile, meaning you can carve from either side. Some of your traditional lino tiles do come with a hessian back, so obviously you would only be able to carve from the one side of those ones. So first off, what we want to do is roll up a space on our tile that is going to fit our pencil case. So what we're going to do is roll up a 20 by 12 centimeter rectangle so we can draw directly onto our lino tile, which is nice. Just quickly sketch that one up. Now, if you didn't want to do a design that covered the whole of your pencil case, you could do some smaller lino carving, as I mentioned at the beginning, and create a little pattern. So something like that could be good for younger children, as it would be less of a space for them to have to carve. And also they can then use it like a stamp. The great thing about these lino tiles as well is they can be cut easily. So now all we're going to do is cut out our rectangle. And as always, adult supervision is recommended when using scissors. So just pop any excess lino to the side. Another handy tip for when working with lino is to make it a bit easier when carving. It's good to warm up your lino, so you can use your hands or sit on it for a while you're planning your design. Now we have our section that is going to fit onto our pencil case. What we do is take a scrap piece of paper and we're going to trace around our lino so that we know what space we need to take up. And all we do is sketch out our design onto the paper. Now you can sketch directly onto your lino tile. I just like to sketch out onto paper first so that it saves rubbing and getting any marks on your lino that might confuse you later on when you're trying to work out which sections to carve away. So just sketch your design into your rectangle and then cut it out. So I'm going to be doing a little monster today. He's going to be on my pencil case. So now that I have my basic sketch done, I want to transfer it to my lino. So to do that, what I'm going to do is cover the back of my sketch with lead pencil. Now something else to keep in mind when you are doing your designs is that if you are incorporating a word into your design, it will need to be backwards so that when you print it, it comes out the right way. So instead of using the method that I am right now, to get words around the right way, it might be easier to use a tracing paper to do your sketch so you can easily flip it over and see exactly what you're working with so that you know your words are going to come out correct. Alright, once the design is covered, we simply pop him back on top and then we trace around our already sketched design. Make sure you're nice and firm with your sketching, with your tracing, and that firm pressure is going to press the lead pencil that you've just rubbed over the back onto the lino beneath, and hopefully when we peel back our paper, our design will be nice and transferred and easy to see. Just the eye left. And now we peel it back. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I can, which is the main thing. Our design has been transferred onto our lino. So you can go over it if it is a bit faint to make things easier for you to see. What we need to do now is have a think about what we want printed in our design and what we want to carve away. So I thought I'd do this one as it's a nice simple one. And what I want is for my monster to print, and I want the background carved away. So I'm going to do a coloured monster. I'm also going to make sure his eye is carved away. So what I might do is colour in the bits that I want carved away. You can just roughly sketch. This just might help you make sure you don't carve away anything by mistake. So lino printing is also great for challenging your brain and getting to think about negative and positive spaces. It also means you could get creative and kind of challenge the way we see things, maybe do things in an opposite way that you normally would, and see what kind of effects you can get. And then lastly, I want the mouth carved out. So now that I have my design and I know the spaces that I want to carve, it's time to get out those lino tools and start carving. So the first thing I like to do when I start carving out one of my lino pieces is to trace around the outside of my design. And to do this, I use the V-shaped tool. So I'm going to use the large V-shaped tool, as this is quite a large space. There's no real intricate work. And when we're carving, we're just going to make sure the hand that we aren't using to carve is behind the carving tool. So we don't want any chance of slipping and stabbing ourselves with the tool, because that would be very bad. So what we do is we hold our carving tool. We don't hold it like a pencil. We just hold it in our hands there. And generally I like to put my index finger at the bottom there to control it. And then we like to dig it gently into the surface and then try and glide it along the lino. You don't want to dig too far down into the lino, so just try and wiggle and glide that along the surface. And then you'll get these little pieces of lino that come up, and we just dust those to the side. So you can see it can be easy to slip, so it's best to, as I mentioned, always have your hands behind, but also take your time. So we don't want any accidents, and you don't want to accidentally slip and take away some of your design that you didn't mean to either. So carving is something that you tend to get into a bit of a rhythm with eventually. So just keep practicing. So just make your way around the whole shape. It's easier to turn your lino as you go rather than trying to get at weird angles. So just turn your lino and make sure those fingers are always behind or far away from that tool to avoid any accidents. So what you need to do is continue around your shape, and once your outline is done, it will look something like this. All nice and outlined. So the next step that I want to do is clear out all of my background, the inside of the mouth and the inside of the eye. So those bits that I shaded in that first step. Now the best tool for clearing areas is the large U-shaped tool. So it's kind of flatter than that V, so you'll get less detail, and it's great for clearing out big areas of lino. So all we do now is, starting wherever you like, begin carving out that lino. Now where I can, I like to carve away from my design, so away from the monster rather than carving this way towards him, as this will avoid any accidents if you slip and happen to take out some of the monster which you didn't mean to. Now as you're carving, you're going to see that you get these little peaks in your lino. Now you can go through and flatten those out as much as you like. Some people like to leave some higher peaks, and what happens is when you're printing, those peaks are going to pick up some of the ink as you roll across the surface, and it might actually print. So that is called noise. Some people really like noise in their lino prints. I don't mind it, and if you use the same direction while you're clearing your spaces like this. It means your peaks are going to be all running in the same direction, and sometimes it can add to your design. So just go through and clear all those spaces, and once that's done, it's going to look something like this. Now I could leave my design just like that, or another thing I could do is add in a little bit of detail to my monster if I wanted to create some texture. So a tool that's great for that is your smaller V tool. So this is just like the one we used to do the outline, but this time it's a little smaller so you can get that smaller, finer detail. So what I might do is create some little scales almost. So just a quick little dig in, flick it up, and you can pull those little sections off. So we have only talked about the U and V tools in the pack. You do get a large and a small of each, so that's 4 of the tools that we have spoken about. And the other 2 that are included are these chisel-like tools. So this one's more like a blade, and you can actually use that to cut in and create really sharp edges of your designs. And this chisel tool is a great one for going back in and clearing those peaks that I was talking about earlier. So you can really flatten out your lino with those ones. We'll just continue creating our texture. Oh, see, that can happen and it slips. And what you can do there is just dig that in, the main bit, a little further, so hopefully when you print it won't be as noticeable. Another good thing you could do with this is cut out little circles. When you're doing circles, it's best to hold your tool in place and then spin the lino around to create a more circular shape, as it can get a bit out of hand when you're trying to carve with these. It does take a bit of practice to get used to them. Just add a few more to this arm over here, and then we'll leave it at that. And now we'll get started on the printing. So what I like to do for printing is take a plastic sheet of acetate, or in this case I'm just going to use a plastic sleeve, and I'm just going to masking tape it down to my work surface. Now what I'm going to do is use this plastic to roll my ink out onto. If you've got a piece of glass, maybe from like a photo frame, or if you've got like a large tile or something like that, that's also great for using to roll out your inks, as then you can wash it off when you're done. But this is just a way I've found that's simple, and I've usually got something like this lying around. So taping it down to your desk will mean when you're rolling out the ink, it's not going to flap up and it'll stay nice and flat on your table. I'm also going to place down a bit of scrap paper just because this section can get a bit messy. So I'll just pop down some scrap paper so hopefully I don't get ink everywhere. So choose the colour that you're going to use for your print. This is a one print job for me. If you've done something more detailed, you might have a couple of colours in there that you want to do. So all that you do in those instances is make sure when you're rolling your ink onto the surface of the lino, you ink the colour in the spots where you want. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of ink onto the plastic surface. The great thing about lino printing is you don't need much ink at all. So start with a little bit and you can always add to it. And as you can see, it's a thicker ink than your normal, it's not like your normal acrylic paints. And what you want to do is roll that out, roll it both ways, and you'll start to hear that nice sticky sound and see a bit of a shiny pattern through the ink. Now you don't need to roll it all the way out. A nice little square about as wide as your roller is good, and should mean that you don't waste any ink. So once that's all rolled out and your roller, you can see, is nicely inked up, we just roll it across the top of our lino design. As you can see, it's starting to go on. So just continue inking up your lino until that whole surface is nice and covered. And you can see in the background here those peaks, the noise that I was talking about earlier. Some of those have obviously picked up the ink. Now it's up to you, you could even wipe that ink off at this stage if you didn't want to print it, but as I mentioned, it doesn't really bother me, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. Okay, so that's all inked up. It's nice and shiny. Now what I want to do is take my pencil case. I'm actually going to use a piece of scrap paper. I'm just going to fold it in half. I'm going to pop it inside the pencil case. Now this will just protect the other side in case the ink decides it wants to bleed through. So just pop that down inside. And we're ready to print. So what I'm going to do is lay the pencil case on top of the lino print. And it can be a bit difficult, but I'm just going to align the bottom of the monster as well as I can. And once I've laid that on top, I press down, making sure not to move it. We don't want it to smudge. And then I'm just going to use the heel of my hand to start pressing all over the design underneath. As I mentioned before, a spoon can be a handy tool, as it's a great way of doing this step. So it's kind of like we're putting a lot of firm pressure down and pressing the pencil case into the inked face of the lino. So you want to spend a good amount of time rubbing and applying that pressure, as the more thorough you are in this step, the better your print will come out. I won't spend too much time now, but you get the idea. And once you are happy with that, we begin to pull back our pencil case from the lino. And there we have a lovely monster lino print. Now you could allow that to dry. You can use this print as many times as you want. You could just wash it off in some soapy water and add another color. You could print on the back as well. Another fun thing to do could be to use your lino to create patterns on some paper, and then you could wrap your school books in it so that you have a complete stationery set with all of your lino print. And that's as easy as it is. Lino printing's lots of fun. So as I mentioned, you might want to make some smaller little stamp-like lino cuts. Get into it, have lots of fun, and you too can create your very own personalised pencil case for the new school year. I hope you've all had a great time learning a little bit about lino printing and creating your own special pencil cases to start off the new year back at school. One thing I do want to mention is just about the inks we have used today. So these inks are a water-based ink and not made for specifically for fabric. So one thing you could do is just give it a bit of a hot iron over the top, and this will help a little bit to set your colors into the fabric. But do not wash these pencil cases and try to keep them away from water, as it will wash out. So I hope you enjoy the final days of your school holidays. I've had a lot of fun crafting with you over the last couple of weeks. If you would like to send us photos of the crafts that you have got up to in the holidays, then please don't hesitate to email them through or tag us in on the socials. And until next time, happy crafting!